computer full of people this morning.
Yes.
So Chambers County Court come to order. Probate court. So anyone that's going to testify, if you will raise your right hand, please.
You can't see me.
Melinda,
Can you hear me? Can you
Yes.
hear me, Judge? Okay.
we can't hear you.
Okay. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're giving today is true and correct? So help you God.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay, you can put your hand down. And for those of you who hadn't heard, Alex Beal passed away night before last. Very sad. He was a really good attorney, did a lot of work in Chambers County, some probate court and county court, and district court, and just an all around good guy, served his country. And remember his family in your prayers, if you would. All right, cause number 21 CPR 0160, the state of Herman Ray Dodson.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
And
Judge.
what's your name, Counselor?
Marilyn Wells.
Thank you, Marilyn. Okay. And you may proceed.
Okay. So the first witness that I have is Craig Blanchard. And are you on, Craig?
Where's he at?
Oh, you're on mute.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Yeah, Mr. Blanchard, you need to unmute your. We can see your lips moving.
Okay, there we go. How's
There
that?
you go.
Okay. So can you please state your name for the record?
My name is Daniel Craig Blanchard,
And what is your address?
2711 Crowell Lane, Baytown, Texas, 77521.
Okay. And were you well acquainted with Herman Ray Dodson?
Yes, I've known Herman since 1972.
And did Herman Ray Dodson die on October 16th, 2021 in Chambers County, Texas at 84 years old?
Yes, ma'am.
And was the date of his death less than 4 years ago?
Yes, ma'am.
Was the decedent a resident of Chambers County?
Yes, ma'am.
And to the best of your knowledge, did Herman Dodson have a will?
No, ma'am. I don't have no idea.
Okay.
What?
And was Herman Dodson ever divorced?
Yes,
Okay. Was he married at the time of his death?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Did he have any children?
He has an adopted daughter, Christy Dodson.
Okay. To the best of your knowledge, did he have any other children through birth or adoption?
No, ma'am.
And is there a necessity for the administration of this estate?
Yes, there is a necessity to get this taken care of.
Okay. No further questions. I pass the witness.
Mr. Dawson, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Judge. First of all, I apologize. About 10 minutes ago, I remembered that I should have proper decorum, so I failed to get a tie and jacket this morning, so I apologize to the court. And so I don't look as good as Roy Fuller does this morning.
He does look sharp, doesn't he?
Oh, man. Okay, Mr. Blanchard, how you doing this morning?
Great, and you?
Okay, all right. And you knew Mr. Dodson for how many years?
Well, since 1972.
Okay, and how was he employed?
He was, excuse me, he was employed by Houston Lighting and Power.
Did your father and Herman, the decedent, ever work together?
Yes, at one point, when the Houston Lighting Power went on strike, my father employed him with Brandon Root on a construction job.
Okay, so have you ever been in his home?
Yes.
And where is his residence?
Now, well, I don't know which home you're talking about. Now, the one, I haven't been to his home in Mont Bellevue.
Okay.
I've been to his home that my father purchased from Herman. Matter of fact, I'm sitting in this home right now.
Okay, actually Herman had built a couple homes.
Yes. Right.
What was he, electrician by nature?
Herman, well, I don't know. He was a lineman
Okay,
for the power company.
okay.
Electrician, I guess.
And did you have conversations with him to such an extent that you would know whether or not he had a wife?
He came, he always came by, he'd come by here off and on and, we'd talk, but I never heard him mention anything about a wife.
Okay, as far as you know, when he passed, he was a single person, is that right?
That's correct.
And to your knowledge, when he passed away, as far as you know, he had been a single person for a number of years, is that right?
That's correct.
And how many children did he have?
Just one, Christy, the adopted child, Christy.
Do you know the mother of Christy?
Yes, that was my stepsister,
And what was her name?
Virginia Ann Dodson. Her maiden name was Caldwell.
Okay, and did he ever speak of any other children?
No, sir.
Okay, to your knowledge,
I think he was incapable of I think he was sterile. He wasn't able to produce children, from my understanding.
okay, and so the Virginia Christie's mother would also have been the adopted mother, is that correct?
That's correct.
And of course, Herman, the decedent, would have been the adopted father, right?
That would be correct.
And you were not aware of any other child, is that correct?
That's correct, because he's not capable of having children.
Okay,
That's why they adopted Christy.
okay. Thank you, sir. That's all I have. I passed the witness.
Got your next witness, Counsel.
So we call witness Kira Bajent.
I saw Kara on there. Oh, there she is. Good morning, Kara.
Hey,
Did we swear you in or did you just get on?
I did it.
You did?
Yes.
Okay. All right, you may proceed, Counsel.
Okay, please state your name for the record.
Cara Bajent,
And what is your address?
11707 Sunnyside Drive, Baytown, Texas, 77523.
And were you well acquainted with Herman Ray Dodson?
Yes.
Okay, how did you know Mr. Dodson?
Oh, he would come into my work at Linda Seafood just about every day or every other day.
Okay, and did Herman Dodson die on October 16th, 2021 in Chambers County, Texas at 84?
Yes.
And the date of death was less than 4 years ago?
Yes.
And was he a resident of Chambers County?
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, did Herman Dodson have a will?
I did not know that.
Okay. Is there a necessity for the administration of this estate?
No.
Was Herman Dodson ever divorced?
Yes, to his wife, but I don't know what her name is.
Okay. To the best of your knowledge, was Herman Dodson married at the time of death?
No.
Okay. To the best of your knowledge, was Herman Dodson cohabitating with anyone at the time of his death?
No.
And did Herman Dodson have any children?
Yes, one.
And what are their names?
Christy Dodson.
To the best of your knowledge, did he have any other children through either birth or adoption?
No.
Okay, no further questions. I pass the witness.
So,
Yes, Miss Badgett, my name is Dick Dawson and we've spoke before, is that correct?
Yes.
And do you reside in Barbers Hill?
Yes.
And your place of work is Linda Seafood, is that correct?
Yes.
Do you know where Mr. Dodson, the decedent, lived?
Yeah, he lived in River Oaks.
Okay, and that's on 565 North, is
Yeah,
that correct?
Yes. Yes.
About how far is that from Linda Seafood?
Oh, maybe about 1.5 miles, 2 miles. Not far.
How long did you know Mr. Dodson?
Oh, for about 15 years.
Would he come into the store regularly?
Yes.
And did he ever speak of any other children?
No.
Did he ever speak of any other heirs other than Christie?
No.
As far as you know, his only child, his only heir would be Christie, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever been in his home?
Yes.
Was he not married at the time of his death?
No.
Did he ever speak of a spouse or any female that could be considered his spouse prior to his death?
No.
All right. Did he cohabit with any female prior to his death, to your knowledge?
No.
Now, you live on Sunnyside Drive. That's on 565, which is probably a couple miles from his house. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And that's all I have. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Wells.
We call Christy Dodson. And can you please state your name for the record?
Christy Lynn Dodson?
And were you well acquainted with Herman Dodson?
Yes,
And did Herman Dodson die on October 16th, 2021 in Chambers County, Texas at 84?
yes, ma'am.
And the date of death was less than 4 years ago.
Yes, ma'am.
Was he a resident of Chambers County at the time of death?
Yes, ma'am.
What was his address at the time of his death?
310 River Oaks Drive, Baytown, Texas, 77523.
And to the best of your knowledge, do you know how long he lived at that address?
I think he built the house in, I want to say 86, but it could have been a little bit late. He built 2 houses in Mont Bellevue. That was the second one.
Okay. To the best of your knowledge, did Herman Dodson have a will?
I think so, but I couldn't find one.
Okay.
So I don't know for sure.
Was Herman Dodson ever divorced?
Yes,
And to the best of your knowledge, was he cohabitating with anyone at the time of death?
no,
To the best of your knowledge, was he married at the time of his death?
no, he was not.
Besides yourself, did Herman Dodson have any other children through birth or adoption?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And is there a necessity for the administration of this estate?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever been declared incapacitated by a court of law?
No, ma'am.
And are you a resident of the state of Texas?
Yes, ma'am.
Have you ever been convicted of a felony offense?
No, ma'am.
Have you ever been convicted of a crime of moral turpitude?
No, ma'am.
And you've requested the court to appoint you administrator of the estate. Are you qualified and willing to serve as such?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, no further questions. I pass the witness.
Mr. Dawson, any questions, this witness?
Yes, sir. Christy, my name is Dick Dawson, and what was the name of your mother?
Virginia Ann Dodson?
And she was your adoptive mother, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Sorry.
And was Herman Dodson the decedent, was he your biological father or adopted father?
My adopted father.
Was he able to conceive?
No.
And how do you know that?
My mother told me that that's why they adopted me.
At what age were you adopted, ma'am?
I was adopted, I guess, before I came out of the belly. I went straight home from the hospital to their house. So.
Okay. And at the time of his demise, was he cohabiting with any female that may be considered his wife?
No, ma'am. No, sir.
Okay. And how many times was he married, if you know?
4.
I didn't hear you.
4.
But notwithstanding that, he did not adopt any other child. Is that correct?
No, sir.
And did you search for a will?
I went into his house and I couldn't find one.
Would you characterize it that you made a diligent effort to look for the will?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Did he ever indicate to you how he would like to dispose of his estate?
No.
But you're the sole heir. Is that your representation?
yes, sir.
in court? Okay. That's all I have. Thank you for your testimony. I'm sorry for your loss, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So you're requesting judgment, excuse me, declaring heirship to be approved. I see Mr. Dawson signed off on it in agreement that Christy Lynn Dodson is the only heir to Mr. Dodson's estate. And you're also requesting order authorizing appointment fees, and y'all have agreed to an amount. Is that correct?
Yes.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. And also the author, I'm approving the letters of independent administration. All those that have testified, you are free to go. Unless you have something else, Mr. Dawson.
May I be excused then?
You may be.
Thank you, sir.
Oh,
Good day.
okay.
May I be excused?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, cause number 22, CPR 0063, the state of Lily Shinnick.
Yes, Your Honor. This is Zach Celeste, attorney for the applicant, David Rodriguez. I see our witnesses here. I know Esther Morales is having some difficulty with audio. Esther, can you hear me? Tammy, can you hear me?
I guess I'm done.
Yes, sir, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hey, Esther, yes, we can hear you. Okay.
Those are your two witnesses.
Your Honor.
And I see Ms. Rendon's on too, so you may proceed, counsel. Did we swear you in?
Yes.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you may proceed, counsel.
Okay, Esther, I'll start with you. Please state your name for the court.
Esther Morales.
Okay, Esther, and you reside at 1202 Siegler Road in Houston, Texas. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is it correct that you were the decedent Lily Shinnick's childhood best friend?
Yes,
And so you've approximately known her entire life. Is that correct?
that's correct.
And you're personally familiar with her family and marital history. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and can you confirm that she died on September 13th, 2021 in Harris County, Texas?
That's correct.
And at the time of her death, she was domiciled in Chambers County, Texas. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is it true and correct that at the time of her death, she was not married?
That's correct.
But she was previously married, correct, to Dan T. Shinnick. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And that marriage ended in divorce on or about July 16th, 1982 in Jefferson County, Texas. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is it correct that the decedent had never had any children?
That's correct.
And she was predeceased by her mother and her father. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And she was also predeceased by two brothers, Paul Edward Rodriguez and Johnny Ray Rodriguez. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is it also correct that Johnny did not have any surviving children?
Not that I know of.
And but it is also correct that Paul Edward Rodriguez is survived by two children, Amanda and Sean. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And Lily was also survived by five siblings. Is that correct? We've got Norma, David, Richard, Bobby, and Joe Jr. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you have no interest in the estate. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I pass the witness, Your Honor.
May I proceed?
Brenda, you may proceed.
Okay, thank you. Just real quick, you confirmed that Paul Rodriguez did pass away with two kids, is that correct?
That's correct.
And are those two kids, is that Amanda Rodriguez and Sean Rodriguez?
That's correct.
Okay, and are you being paid for your testimony today?
No, I'm not.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Okay, call your next witness, counsel.
Okay, Your Honor, my next witness is Tammy. Tammy, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, please state your name for the court.
Tammy Drake,
Okay, Tammy, what is your home address?
821 Manili Road, Winnie, Texas, 77665.
And you're a family friend and a coworker of Lily Shinnick, is that correct?
Correct.
And you worked with her and were familiar with her for about 12 years, is that correct?
Correct.
And you're personally familiar with her family and marital history, is that correct?
Correct.
And to the best of your knowledge, at the time of her death, she was not married, is that correct?
Correct.
And at that time, she was domiciled in Chambers County, Texas, is that correct?
Correct.
She was previously married to Dan T. Shinnick, but they were divorced on approximately July 16th, 1982. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And is it true and correct that she never had any children?
That's correct.
Tammy, you heard the questions that I asked Esther about Lily's parents predeceasing her and her brothers, Paul and Johnny, predeceasing her. And that Paul was survived by his two children, Amanda and Sean, and that Lily was survived by 5 siblings. If I asked you those same questions, would your answers be the same?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Your Honor, I pass the witness.
Yes, sir.
I just have one follow-up question. Are you being paid for your testimony today, Ms. Drake?
No, ma'am.
All righty. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Okay, Your Honor. Next, I've got David Rodriguez, our applicant here. David, please state your name for the court.
David Allen Rodriguez.
Is it true and correct that your sister Lily Shinnick died on September 13th, 2021 in Harris County, Texas at the age of 66?
Yes.
And on the date of her death, she was domiciled in Chambers County, Texas. Is that correct?
Yes.
And to the best of your knowledge, she died without a will, correct?
Correct.
And at the time of her death, she owned real and personal property, generally described as home, cash, securities, automobiles, household goods, and personal effects with a probable value of more than $75,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
And it's your belief that an administration of the estate is necessary because at the time of her death, she had real property, business interests, financial accounts without pay on death beneficiaries. Is that correct?
Yes.
And an independent administration is appropriate because all the distributees of the estate have consented to an independent administration and they've designated you as the independent administrator. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And Your Honor, I will say that their waivers and consents are on file with the court. David, last question here. Is it true and correct that there's nothing that would disqualify you from serving as a personal representative of the estate?
That's correct.
Okay. I have no further questions, Your Honor. I'll have David sign his proof and I'll get the witness statements filed with the court and I'll await the order before we file the oath.
Thank you. Ms. Renda?
I have no questions of this witness, Your Honor.
Okay, so you two agree to the judgment declaring heirship.
That's correct.
Yes, Your
I
Honor.
signed off on it and I'm going to approve that. And the appointee fees, Ms. Rendon.
Yes, Your Honor.
Then the order granting letters of independent administration. Thank you all.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Take care. All right, calls number 65, the state of David Lee Gray. Ms. Jackson, good morning.
Good morning.
You may proceed.
All right. Ms. Gray, please state your full name. Bob.
Gray.
And are you the wife of David Lee Gray?
Yes, I am.
Mr. Gray died in 2022. He died in Harris County.
Yes.
He died at the age of 86 years old.
Yes.
And 4 years have gone elapsed since the date of his death and the filing of this application. Is that correct? 4 years have not elapsed since the date of his death.
No.
And to your best knowledge, he had a will which was signed and dated on January the 9th, 1990. Is that correct?
Yes.
And he did not revoke that will. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the will is made self-proves. Is that right?
Yes.
And No state, no governmental agency or a charitable organization was named as a devicee in the will, is that correct?
They were not.
And you were named as the executor of the will, is it correct?
Yes,
There's no reason why you'd be disqualified to act as such, is that correct?
that's correct.
You asked the court to appoint you same
Yes,
and to waive appraisers and grant you letters testamentary.
yes.
I saw the testimony we have, Your Honor.
Okay, everybody admit the will of probate and authorize letters. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Call number 67, the state of Linda and Nanette Rhodes Arthur.
Mr. President.
You may proceed, Counselor.
Thank you, Judge. I'll be testifying. My name is Roy Fuller. I'm well acquainted with the decedent and the decedent's family, Linda Danette Rhodes Arthur. She died on November 26, 2020 in Chambers County, Texas. She was 65 years of age. 4 years have not elapsed since the date of her death. At the time of her death, she was a resident and domiciled in Chambers County. The original will, which is dated December the 17th, 2013, has been filed with the court, and I'd ask the court to take judicial notice of that original will, which is in the court's file.
Go down.
To my knowledge, there were no children born or adopted after the execution of the will. The decedent did not have a marriage that was dissolved after the execution of the will. The will names the surviving spouse, Richard Stephen Arthur, to serve as independent executor. And to my knowledge, there's no reason why he would be disqualified from serving. The will does not name the state, a governmental agency of the state, or a charitable organization as a devizee. It is a non-taxable estate. There is a need for administration. We'd ask the court to waive the appraisers and appoint Mr. Arthur as independent executor.
Admit the will of probate and authorize letters. Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, cause number 69, the state of Warner L. Hale.
Yes, Judge.
Linda, will you swear a man, please?
I will. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're giving today is true and correct? So help you God.
I do.
And you may proceed, sir.
Thank you, Judge. My name is Weston Cotton, and Warner Hale died May 6, 2022 in Baytown, Chambers County, Texas, at the age of 81 years. 4 years have not elapsed since his death. He had a fixed place of residence in Chambers County at the time of his death, and he died testate, and his will was signed on June 4th, 2020, which I have a copy in my possession and recognize it. Judge, you have the original in your file, and I would ask you to take judicial notice of that.
Hold on.
There is a necessity for the administration of the estate. This will was never revoked so far as I know. There is no governmental agency or charitable organization named in the will as a devizee. There were no child or children born to or adopted by him after the date of the will, and no marriage was dissolved after the date the will was made. His will named Chris Greenwood to serve as the independent executor, and Chris Greenwood is not disqualified by law from accepting letters and serving. He should be awarded the title of independent executor, Judge. It is a small estate and would ask that the appraisers be waived.
Well done. Hereby admit the will of probate and authorize letters. Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you, Judge. May I be excused?
You may be. Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Cause number 71, the state of Catherine Ann Harris.
Your Honor, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. You may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Mr. Harris, could you please state your name for the court?
Jimmy Lewis Harris.
And Mr. Harris, is it true that Catherine Ann Harris, the decedent, died on April 10th, 2022 at the age of 79 years, and that 4 years have not elapsed since the date of her death?
Yes.
And is it true that the decedent was domiciled and had a fixed place of residence in Chambers County at the date of her death?
Yes.
And is it true that the document dated March 26, 2022, which has already been submitted to the court, which purports to be the decedent's will, was never revoked as far as you know?
Yes.
And is it true that a necessity exists for the administration of her estate?
Yes.
Is it true that no child or children were born to or adopted by the decedent after the date of her will?
Yes.
And is it true that the decedent was married to James Lewis Harris at the time of her death?
Yes.
And is it true that you, as the independent executor named in the will, are not disqualified by law from accepting letters testamentary or from serving as such, and that you are entitled to such letters?
Yes.
No further questions for this witness.
Okay, everybody admit the will of probate and authorize letters.
Thank you, Judge.
All right, cause number 72, the state of Eileen M. Dutton. Morning, sir. You may proceed, counsel.
Mr. Dutton, could you please state your name for the court?
John D. Dutton Jr.
And Mr. Dutton, is it true that Eileen M. Dutton died on April 17th, 2022 at the age of 73 years, and that 4 years have not elapsed since the date of her death?
Yes.
And is it true that the decedent was domiciled and had a fixed place of residence in Chambers County at the date of her death?
Yes.
And is it true that the document dated May 6, 1982, which has already been submitted to the court, which purports to be her will, was never revoked as far as you know?
Yes.
And is it true that a necessity exists for the administration of her estate?
Yes.
Is it true that no child or children were born to or adopted by the decedent after the date of her will?
Yes.
Is it true that the decedent was not married at the time of her death?
Yes.
Is it true that the decedent's will appointed your father, John D. Dutton Sr., as independent executor, who is now deceased?
Yes.
And is it true that in that event, the will then appointed Gladys Turner as an alternate independent executor, but Gladys Turner is also deceased?
Gladys Turner is not deceased.
Okay.
Marie was deceased.
Okay. So is it true that the will purported to name Marie Johnson as independent executor, but that she is also deceased?
Yes.
And is it true that the will did not appoint any further persons or entities to serve as independent executor?
Yes.
And so is it true that you are the only beneficiary of the will of the decedent?
Yes.
And is it true that you have requested that you be designated to serve as independent administrator, and that you're not disqualified by law from accepting letters of independent administration or from serving as such, and that you are entitled to such letters?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Okay, everybody admit the will of probate and authorize letters.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Cause number 73 is stated John D. Dutton, and you may proceed, counsel.
For Your Honor, Mr. Dutton, is it true that John D. Dutton died on October 11th, 2008 in Houston, Harris County, Texas, at the age of 66 years?
Yes.
And is it true that more than 4 years had elapsed since the date of his death?
Yes.
And is it true that you, as the applicant for probate of the will as muniment of title, are not in default in failing to present the will for probate on or before the 4th anniversary of the decedent's death, as the will is only being offered to establish a link in the chain of title to perfect title by you and not to inherit under the will?
Yes.
And is it true that the decedent was domiciled and had a fixed place of residence in Chambers County at the date of his death?
Yes.
And is it true that the document dated May 6, 1982, which has already been filed with the court, which purports to be his will, was never revoked as far as you know?
Yes.
And is it true that no child or children were born to or adopted by the decedent after the date of his will?
Yes.
Is it true that the decedent was not divorced, nor had the marriage annulled or declared void after the date of his will?
Yes.
Is it true that you have personal and full knowledge of the financial affairs of the decedent?
Yes.
And is it true that there's no necessity for any administration of the decedent's estate because there are no debts owed by the decedent which are not secured by liens on real estate?
Yes.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Admit the will of probate as a muniment of title only. Thank you, sir. Thank both of you gentlemen.
Hey, Judge.
Good day.
They would be excused.
You may be.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. All right, cause number 74, the state of Murtis Jeanette Hobbs. Ms. Graves, good morning.
Good morning, Your Honor. I'll be testifying. Your Honor, my name is Denise Graves. The decedent, Murtis Jeanette Hobbs, passed on March 20th of 22 in Baytown, Harris County, Texas, at the age of 82 years old, and 4 years have not elapsed since the date of her death. The court has jurisdiction and venue over the estate, and that the decedent was domiciled and had a fixed place of residence in Chambers County, Texas. To the best of my knowledge, decedent died testate, and the document dated March 11th, 2022, having been previously filed with the court, and which purports to be her last will and testament, was never revoked. So far as I know, ask the court to take judicial notice of the will's filing.
The
decedent's will was self-proved. A necessity exists for the administration of the estate. After the date of the will, no child was born or adopted by the decedent. Decedent was not divorced after the date of her will. The will named Ronald D. Mayfield to serve as independent executor, and he is not disqualified from accepting the letters or from serving as such and is entitled to such letters without bond. The will did not leave any property to a charity or governmental agency. This is a non-taxable estate, and we ask the court to waive the appointment of appraisers.
All right, hereby admit the will of probate and authorize letter.
Thank you,
ma'am.
Your Honor.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you.
Cause number 75, the state of Sharon Cecilia Burgess. Good morning, Mr. McCall,
Morning, Judge.
and you may proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your name is Cody R. Bilodeau. Your mother was Sharon Cecilia Burgess.
Yes, sir.
She passed away on June the 3rd of this year.
Yes, sir.
And she had her fixed place of residence in Winnie at the date she passed away.
Yes, sir.
You filed her last will and testament for probate. This is a copy of the original that was filed with the court.
Yes, sir.
And you recognize that to be her last will and testament.
Yes, sir.
And you recognize that to be her signature.
Yes, sir.
And so far as you know, she never revoked this will.
Yes, sir. She never revoked it.
Okay. And she didn't leave anything to any charity or any state or governmental entity.
No, sir.
She didn't have any children born to her, adopted to her after the day of the will.
No, sir.
Never got divorced after the day of the will.
No, sir.
And the will names you to be the independent executor.
Yes, sir.
And you're not disqualified in any way from serving as independent
No,
executor. And you're asking if the court approve the application to probate your will and to admit the will to probate.
Yes, sir.
That's all I have to know.
All right, everybody admit the will of probate and authorize the letters. Your mother was a sweetheart. I enjoyed working with her all those years. So
Thank you very much, sir.
sorry for your loss.
Thank you, Judge.
Okay, cause number 76, the state of Winford Lindley Smith.
Morning, Judge. Diamond De Leon present for the applicant. Who's
Howdy,
also
Judge.
present on Zoom.
All right, you may proceed.
Thank you, Judge. Mrs. Smith, can you hear me?
Yes,
All righty. Would you please state your name for the record?
my name is Camilla Smith,
And what is your relationship to the decedent, Winford Lindley Smith?
his wife.
And he passed away in Chambers County with his fixed place of residence. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And he passed away on February 3rd. Is that right? He was 78 years old?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was not 4 years ago, right? That was February 3rd, 2020. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
And he left a will dated March 15th, 1994 that was never revoked. Isn't that right?
Yes, sir.
And since that will, there have been no marriages that have dissolved and no children have been adopted. Is that right?
No, sir.
Okay. But no, that is right, correct?
Yes, sir.
Sorry, I
Got
know the
it.
question. Get backwards. It's all right. It was my question. And the will was self-proved. It means it was signed and it was signed by two witnesses 2 times, right? 2 sets of them and notarized properly.
Yes, sir.
And the will does not name any charities as a devisee or beneficiary. Is that right?
No, sir.
Okay. And the will names you to serve as independent executor without a bond. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you're not disqualified by law, meaning that you're not you don't have any felony convictions or you've never been convicted of a crime of moral turpitude. Is that right?
No.
And you're asking for the court to approve the issuance of letters testamentary, so we can probate this estate?
Yes, sir.
I pass to witness, Judge.
No questions. I hereby approve probating the will and authorize letters testamentary.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Smith, take care.
Thank you, Judge. You can log off, Mrs. Smith. I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.